If you've listened to this podcast, then you know the Tighten Up's brought to you by Last Shot Premium Hydration, the official hydration drink of Tighten Up. Their revolutionary formula is packed with vitamin B12 and 0 grams of sugar. It helps the Titans hydrate, replenish, and recover. Try it at Callahan Hall or learn more at lastshotofficial.com.
Detroit, it's time to tighten up. Welcome to Tighten Up, the podcast, presented by the Shield NIL. Brought to you by Hyperice and Last Shot Energy. A state of the Titans, the latest in Detroit Mercy athletics, and a chance to hear from Titans all over the world. Here's your host, Dan Hasty.
Back here for part 2 of our 2-part conversation with Titans guard Mak Manciel. If you missed the first part, don't forget, you can go back and catch up on what you missed. Episode 23 is the start of our chat with Mak. Some of the best news of the whole season, finding out that Mak Manciel was able to return to the Titans roster. Let's not wait anymore. Let's jump right back in where we left off, the conclusion of our conversation with Mak Manciel. You mentioned Monty. So Mark Montgomery, and not as many people know this, and if you're really connected, and odds are if you're listening to this right now, you might remember that Mark Montgomery actually came in as an assistant with the Titans a couple of years ago. So it was 2021. It was that COVID year. It was that shortened basketball season. Titans had an over 500 year that year, and mainly one of the big influential factors came in the second half of that year. And the Titans went on a big time run late in that season. I believe they won 9 of their last 12 games, and it was all conference games at that point. And I don't think it's a coincidence, but that also lined up exactly when Mark Montgomery quietly joined the coaching staff. He had been let go from Northern Illinois. He came in, and all of a sudden, the Titans started playing really, really good basketball. And having been around and having been in those meetings, one of the things that I felt was that he had a connectability with the guys, with the players, and an ability to communicate with them. So I'm curious the way you see it. How does he connect with you guys?
Honestly, that was a great point right there. If he does a great job of listening as well as teaching. And so that was, that's something that, especially in this generation, it's not the best, but especially because we have so many freshmen, they all want to be heard. And so that's something that I had to learn myself. When someone tells me something, you got to listen before you respond back. And that's something that we have that takes time, you know what I'm saying? Because especially in basketball, you're so emotionally charged. You hear something, you just want to say something back and just kind of keep the conversation going. And Coach Monty does a great job of not only putting players in check, saying, okay, look, this is really how it's going to go. But at the same time, if say we're watching film or something and Orlando or me or E or somebody just sees something, points it out, he does a great job of kind of letting us get the point across and teach the guys up. And then also doubling back on it and explaining why, how he wants it done, and who he's specifically talking about. And so because we have such a great connection of it, we don't feel necessarily tense, when Coach Monty is talking, because we know we can learn from him, but also he is very open to kind of understanding also kind of what we have going on and how we feel and how we saw it. And then even if we don't agree, he'll go back and watch the film. And if say they were right, he will tell you himself, I watched the film, I saw what you were talking about, I understand now. And just like that, it's, there's a mutual respect right there already, because now you know that he actually was listening and he's seen what you were talking about. And if you're wrong, he'll bring it up again and say, look, this is why you were wrong because of this, this, and this on the film. And it makes everything a lot easier, because a lot of times, you'll hear things where it's do this, 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 and this, and then you really don't have a good example. You don't really know how. And so you're kind of struggling to Coach Monty, he'll hop in practice and show you how he wants it done. So there's no debate on how he wants things ran and what he wants from guys. And because of that, I got to give a lot of props to Coach Monty, because he does a great job with that specifically.
It's interesting. It's one thing if it's always you're doing this wrong, doing this wrong. But if there's that little give and take where every once in a while, hey, I went back, I saw this, you had it right. That goes a long way. And I feel like you'd be a good person to answer this, because I've known you for a couple of years now, and I feel like you have a pretty good handle on it because you've played at a couple of different schools. You played for a couple of different coaches. How does, in your opinion, how does today's athlete at the college level, how does today's athlete want to be coached?
I feel like it's more so based on person to person, because me growing up personally, and we can have Orlando Lovejoy attest to this, but playing for Orlando's pops, he got me ready for a lot of hard coaching. And because of that, I know for a fact, if a coach is sitting here yelling at me, it's not going to really break me down. It'll and that's also a test to Coach Mike Davis, because Coach Mike Davis was very hard on me on as well. And that was another maturing process that I went through. And I have a lot of respect for him, because it just helped me honestly grow up a little bit. And that takes a level of maturity for some guys. Some guys can take hard coaching. Some guys can't take hard coaching. And it honestly really depends, because some guys need hard coaching and some guys break down under hard coaching. So it's really kind of player to player, because there's some guys that are going to go extra hard with that motivation. And there's some guys that shut down saying, oh, he doesn't mess with me, or coach doesn't think I'm capable, or whatever you make up kind of in your head. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to win at the end of the day. So whatever you're being told, you should look at it as, he's trying to help me out, not trying to bring me down. And that's something that I try to teach a lot to our freshmen this year, because you come in with an expectation, and it may not be how things are set to go, but being open-minded and just kind of sitting back and listening a little bit can take you a lot farther than kind of going with what you have made up in your mind. Because at the end of the day, everyone has a role that they have to play. Everyone has to kind of do things a certain way, and kind of getting used to that adjustment, because some players can really lock into that role really well, and some guys struggle with that. So it really goes from a player to player, basis for real, because everyone's different, and every coach coaches differently as well. So that's definitely one of the struggles of college basketball, finding a good fit, as a player to coach, because it is very hard to find guys with personalities that don't clash and things of that sort, because there's a lot that goes into it. But it really honestly depends, because I know a lot of guys that enjoy the hard coaching because it makes them play harder. But then I know guys that need kind of that freedom to feel like they're not being, held down and restricted so much to where they can't play their game and things of that sort. So there's definitely a lot that goes into it. So it's kind of hard to establish what's best, I guess you can say, because things work differently for different groups of people. So, that's kind of my perspective on it, I guess.
I once heard a coach say, I treat everybody the same, but I treat everybody different. I think that kind of applies here. You also mentioned, and this reminded me, that in this game, everybody seems to know everybody. And even if you're not on the same team, you probably played with one another at some point along the way. You just casually mentioned that you played for Orlando's dad. Take me back to that.
Okay, so I went to elementary school with Orlando. So I've known Orlando Lovejoy since we were probably 4 years old. My first ever AAU team, called the Super Friends, when I was almost just learning to play a basketball, I had Orlando ball-headed self, right next to me, trying to get the game going. And so that relationship, that's literally one of my brothers. His little brother is real cool with my little brother. So it's kind of family ties. We've known each other, basically our whole lives. And that played into, this year. I never had the opportunity to play with Orlando ever since basically AAU. So this was an opportunity to where I know, there is some sort of connection there to where we've done this multiple times before. We're kind of cut from the same cloth. We play hard, we're energy guys, we're leaders at the same time. And that was easy, to kind of get back, because Orlando knows how I play. He knows things that maybe not everyone else would know. And Orlando's a vet, of course. So he's, he got a lot for himself, but just that's same thing with Legend. Legend didn't play AAU with us at that time period, but he was in Michigan. We playing AAU against him, so that relationship's already formed. It's a little love hate to begin with, but as you grow up, it's all kind of remember back in the day when we played at this school and this and this, and so it's just it's a very small world with basketball, because even with like E-Man, I went to school with his cousin, and so I knew his cousin before I knew E-Man. And somehow, some way, it's just a full circle moment. And so it's that's one of the best things about basketball. I feel like the amount of people that you meet, the guys that you run, into back to back, years down the line and everything. That's one of the most exciting things for sure. And I was blessed to kind of have the group of guys that I had with me, because a lot of these guys I've known for a fairly long time at this point.
You never got like hard fouled by Legend in an AAU game, did you?
I'm sure I have. I'm definitely sure I have. Honestly, the biggest battles was me and Orlando, though. I'm not gonna lie, we used to be in practice almost fighting each other. So there's definitely a lot that's gone into this.
Well, at least you got him as a teammate now. I was gonna ask you, because you were one of the few guys who stayed from one coach to another. And I know you're local. I know Detroit is your hometown. So I know that it means something to you to be here, but it's not always that simple. When one coach goes out and another goes in, it's not a guarantee that you're going to keep anybody from the previous roster. So why'd you stay?
Well, first, I love Detroit. I grew up down the street from Detroit Mercy, so this is the definition of home for me. I've been in Callahan multiple times before I even was enrolled into the school. And at the same time, I've been to a different school every year of my career up into Detroit Mercy with me, not necessarily as a bad thing, but, I started JUCO, then Arkansas State, then my coach wasn't there anymore. So it was kind of, okay, the new coach came in and I left. Let's see what happens if I stay this time, kind of thing. And I had heard from other outside sources kind of a little bit about Coach Monty, and then plus my dad's relationship with Coach Monty being, one of his prior players. It was kind of one of those things to where stay tight, talk to Coach Monty, see how he's feeling, see what he kind of knows about you, what his approach is to the situation. And it just ended up working out. I kind of came into the situation feeling like I was in basically a new situation, to where it's a fresh start. I get to kind of establish who I am, how I approach things, the type of person that, not necessarily that I am, because I stay consistent, throughout, but it's just a kind of a way to a fresh start. These are new guys coming in. I get to kind of establish some things that I didn't establish last year that I could have done a much better job at. And so I kind of took the approach as not necessarily a second chance, but just another what's the word I'm looking for? Another situation, that can be favorable at the end of the day. And so, after Coach Monty came in, I was able to sit down and talk to him about it. And he basically kept it straight with me. He says, look, this is how you performed last year. Regardless of the injury or not, this is what we need. This is what is expected. This is what you have to improve on. And from there, it was, clarity. I showed him what I can do, kind of a healthier side of me, the things that wasn't really even on film last year. And so he kind of, instilled some trust into me, told me he believes in me, what he wants me to do. And from there, it kind of just, the rest is history. So now we're here.
I know Detroit is your home. You just talked about that. You've already been here for a season. I know this place is special for you. What ways have you had a chance to get out and help people around, especially, not downtown, but, the surrounding areas, the areas around Callahan?
Well, honestly, the biggest thing that I guess what for me that I really enjoyed as helping, it wasn't necessarily outside of Callahan, because it did take place in Callahan, but the basketball camps that we've held, I love being able to teach the game, even to people that may not be as involved in the game as, other people that have been playing for multiple years, but just seeing a bunch of kids have the joy and the desire to just get better at something that I've spent almost my whole life, constantly working for. It's just so fun. And it just makes me feel good to be able to share just skills and drills and everything that kind of goes into teaching the game of basketball, and just seeing the joy and how much the kids that come to these camps really enjoy just being with the guys and seeing guys dunk and just shoot half court shots and honestly feeling like they're learning, picking up on things as basketball. And I honestly love it. It's one of my favorite things in the world because I feel like I'm being able to do something that you never know. You can be coaching up the next, LeBron James, who knows? And you could have been part of the piece to why he felt so strongly about wanting to play basketball. And so just kind of trying to be a great example to kids and really just, being an example at the end of the day, because there are a lot of kids, especially being, in Detroit, that look up to us being able to play college basketball and going through the things that they might be going through now in high school, middle school, and things of that sort. It was just, being an example and being able to help out kids to grow their love for basketball, honestly. And I any opportunity that I get to do that, I love being able to kind of just share information, just, kick it with the kids and just, have fun playing basketball with them.
If you want to use Mac or any Detroit Mercy basketball player, women's basketball, any Detroit Mercy student athlete for a camp that maybe you're putting on, you can do that. You can go to the shieldnil.org. You can get information how to use people just like Mac or Mac himself to come out. I'm sure he would be happy to go to your basketball camp. Let's talk about your dad, Mak Manciel, especially now that we know how to pronounce your last name. So right. He played 4 years at Central Michigan, and he had quite the career there. So obviously, you're like so many other guys that have basketball in their family. And I'm curious when it comes to his career, because he played at a very important time for Central Michigan basketball. He played on the Chris Kaman team, the team that went to the NCAA tournament, that won an NCAA tournament game. How close were you following that?
Growing up, I seen my dad be able to play overseas. So my dad's really the foundation for all this. And I have to also kind of give him a shout out because ever since my ankle injury, I've been working out with my father. He's been coming to Callahan every day almost, just getting shots up with me, fine tweaking some things, especially because me knowing how my legs might not be adjusted, just fine tuning the mechanics with my shot. And just, he's put a lot of time and effort, even to this day, into me. So I have a lot of love and just respect for him, because not only did I see how to do it from him all the way professional, and just hearing all the things that everybody has to say about him, how well respected he is, and just how much of a quote unquote killer he was in college with, playing basketball. It was kind of, it gave me a pathway that I knew I wanted to follow. I knew that I could achieve this. And I with me seeing my dad and knowing this is the guy that is instilling all this information to me, and how many pros he's ran into, how many guys he's seen, how much experience he has with this game, I knew that I could take what he was giving me and try to run with it. And so because of him, I'm in the position that I am today. And I just have the utmost respect for him, because it's countless hours in the gym, every day from the time I could honestly remember, really being into basketball. And so all the skill and all the drills and especially the shooting, that's one thing that he is, a marquee. He's just a stickler for the shooting, the details and things of that sort. So because of that, me and my brother have been blessed to kind of just given the experience and the knowledge to know how to do certain things better than, I guess the average basketball player. And so because of him, I was able to see how to lead, but also how to play the game of basketball. And so I've learned a lot from him, and I've learned a lot from not only him, but the people that have respect from him from back in the day. There's a lot of people that I run into today saying, "Oh yeah, I knew your pops. We played here. Let me help you with this. Let me tell you about, when I seen you do this, and this." And so it's crazy how much, even when he's not there, he still ends up, being able to do for me. And so because of him, there's a lot of this basketball for me has started off with him, and it continues off with my little brother. So that's kind of how it all started. Honestly, he set the platform for us, for real.
Where's your little brother playing right now?
So my brother right now is playing at Wasatch Academy over in Utah, and he is doing his big one right now. He had like 30 points against IMG earlier this year. So he's been doing his thing. This has been a big year for him, and so we're kind of just telling him to stay consistent, keep things going, and the rest is yet to come. So we'll kind of see. He's getting to the point where he'll start looking at colleges that he wants to go to and things of that sort. And so we're just really excited for him, and he's just an extension of not only my father but me and my game. And so he's the protege for real. He got it down. He got all the tips and tricks from him to me to the trainers that I've worked with, and even like Orlando in the summer, he was working out with Orlando. They would be in the gym for hours on end, and I'm sitting there getting my shots up, doing things. But it's also, he does a great job of listening, and he's getting better and better. And, that starts with my father, of course. So
somebody once told me, I asked them, I said, what's the advantage of having somebody whose dad or older brother played the game before them? And they said, well, usually it's because the game is not too big for them. They feel like they belong a little bit more so than somebody, who wasn't, maybe because they were already around the game, maybe because they were in locker rooms, maybe because they were getting taught from people like you along the way. So that certainly goes a long way. Take me to, because I'm sure your dad was very plugged in to your first game back, because you getting back on the court was such a huge win on so many fronts. You get a chance, you get back, you go double figures in your first game against Youngstown State, 10 points in 20 minutes, 3 of 5 from the floor. That had to feel like such a big win for you. Let's take a quick break. Hyperice is a proud sponsor of Tighten Up the Podcast, the leading provider of innovative technology for recovery, mobility, and improved performance. Some of the best massage therapy guns you can find. They help the Titans, and they can help you too. Find out more information online at hyperice.com.
It definitely did. And, at the end of the day, I was still upset because I'm trying to win,
Sure.
It felt good to be back on the floor, but I felt that we could have done things better and be more prepared for that game alone. But of course, it was very exciting just to be back out on the floor. And even prior to that game, I don't even know if I should really admit this, but I didn't know how I was going to feel going into this game. Like, there was no real set in stone. Like, I'm not necessarily not saying that I wasn't ready, but it was more so, we'll see how it responds as we kind of go. So going into that game, it was more so, you're going to play a minute 30, 2-minute spurts, and we'll go from there. And I didn't honestly think much of it as I was going through the game. Like, I got out there, I was warm, things felt good. And I'm like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I had a stretch where I played about 5-6 minutes straight, not really too tired, not really feeling in pain or anything like that. And that kind of let me know, where everything stands and how I'm feeling. And just kind of the work that I put in is finally kind of adding up, because there was no real, set in stone way of how I was going to feel at that game. Because mind you, I only practiced full go about 3-4 times prior to that. Everything else was kind of just non-contact, getting some shots up, getting some work in when I could. But it was a quick little turnaround. So it surprised me more so than anything else that I had felt that good going into that first game, because there was no real, in days prior to that, when I was in practice, I was real sore after, just because, everybody's going hard in practice, but I felt fairly good for the game. And so, that was exciting, and it really honestly felt good. It definitely felt good. And my parents were excited as well, because they are kind of in the same spot as me. They didn't really know how it was going to go out. They're just kind of telling me, go out there, play hard, do the best you can. And, of course, that's what I tried to do. So it honestly felt good. It was a kind of a release off my shoulders, because I didn't know where I was standing with things. And so I seen that I was capable of still, making some things work.
So responded well in the moment. How about the day after, 2 days after? How did it feel after that?
So that's actually funny, because I probably got 500 questions. How you feel today? How you feel today? How do you feel today? And I felt better after the game than I had felt after practice the week prior to. And it's funny, because every day that I push it harder, I expect the soreness and all the things that usually come with that, but it usually just makes my ankle feel like it's capable of doing more. And that was kind of how my treatment would go. One day I'd start with, regular box jumps, and I'd be, I didn't know I was ready for that. And 2 days later, I'm doing single leg box jumps, because I was able to break some scar tissue up, and I'm feeling good. And now I'm breaking that mental barricade of me being able to what I'm capable of doing and, you know, how things go. And so a lot of it was definitely mental, but a lot of it was kind of just me being able to kind of fight through, and it kind of worked with me. I wasn't going too hard to where I was being stupid with it, but I was going hard enough to where I was getting a lot of production, you know, and get back, I guess you could say, for the time I had, you know, missed with me kind of waiting on an MRI and not being able to do as much, you know, treatment. And so, yeah, it's very surprising at the end of the day. We were kind of all kind of shocked that I wasn't, and mind you, I still did my contrast and got my treatment and everything. So it's not like I just kind of showed up and, you know, didn't really do nothing about it, because that's one step that I've taken this year from prior years. I've been in that training room probably just as much as the gym nowadays, but it you know, it felt fine. And so I was very excited. And, you know, I had told the coaches and all that, like the minute restriction, yeah, it's cool, but I think I'm pretty good to go and do as much as I can in the time being.
So as we're going down the home stretch here, I didn't want to finish this without mentioning that Mac made the Detroit Mercy athletic director's honor roll last year. So congratulations to you on that. That's a big deal.
I appreciate it. This is actually the first time in college that I made honor roll, and it was a different level of locking in this past semester. I had to really, really buckle down and be attentive in all my classes and just putting in that extra effort that years prior to, I would tell myself I was too tired to do this, or I was too tired to do this. But last semester, especially with me being not on the court, it gave me a little extra energy at the end of the day to knock out some homework that I may have, you know, had to submit it late or something like that. But it was it's kind of surprising, but this was the best GPA I've had in my college career so far. So I guess constantly improving. So that's can't be mad at that.
Mac is a communications major, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. What classes have you been taking?
So this year I'm doing a lot of last minute credits that I may have not had prior to, and just going through my classes. So I'm taking a introduction or psychology class with religion. I'm doing a professional writing class. So it's a lot of classes that necessarily aren't straight for communications, but these are classes that I missed or kind of substituted with communication classes last semester. And so I'm doing a sports writing class as well. So it's a lot of writing as of, you know, and then I also have a speech class, which I had tried to do like 2-3 years ago, never ended up getting the credit. So I had to kind of make it up last minute. So I'm doing a lot of speeches nowadays as well. So it's not a very hard semester, but it's kind of like these are the final little credits I need to walk the stage. And, you know, so I'm just trying to buckle down, make sure I submit everything on time, put the extra effort in a little bit just to get that little better grade, the extra couple points, and, you know, they kind of all add up. So
well, I'll tell you something. It is not easy to walk across the stage at the University of Detroit Mercy. It is not like other schools in that way. All right, before we let you go, rest of the season, you've got a handful of games left. There's still a chance you could host a first-round game in the Horizon League tournament. What do you want out of the rest of the way?
I just want us to lock in and play for each other. At the end of the day, I feel like we're getting to a point where we can start playing some of our best basketball with our defense and guys just being confident in the shots that they take and making shots. And then as far as, you know, our leaders are all kind of on the same page, talking, explaining what we need to do, how we can get things better, what we need to talk to Coach Monty about, how we feel, how we see things on the court. And so this can be a very good stretch for us. And I feel like this is the best time for us, because I feel like right now is when we'll be able to really have everyone buy in and lock in. And so I'm really excited and looking forward to these next couple of games in this little stretch, because I feel like this will be our best basketball, and we'll be able to really shake some things up and really hopefully get that home game to start playoffs off. So that's kind of down the line, but that's a goal kind of subconsciously that we really want ourselves. And so you can expect us to keep showing up, keep playing hard. And at the end of the day, you know, we're going to go out there trying to play our best and win these games. So I'm very excited.
Well, you're as much of a leader as anybody on this team, especially considering that you've already been here. You were already here last year. And just watching this team as compared to last season, or just in general, the thing I like is when it's on, when it looks right, it's the defense that is smothering. And you guys have this ability to frustrate your opponents. I mean, there's no better indication than the fact that teams have a hard time shooting threes against you. For years, other teams had shot so well from beyond the arc against you guys, but this year, it's totally flipped. And I would imagine that it is infuriating playing against you guys when the defense looks the way it has looked in some of your wins this year. So even if you're not at home, even if you have to go on the road, in a lot of those situations, especially when you're playing some of those higher seeds, there's also some added pressure when you're the home team to go out and get wins. So even if you're not at home, you have this ability because of the way your identity has evolved over the course of the season that you guys could easily go out and get a first round win regardless of whether you're home or on the road. That's a fun identity to have when it's defense, when it's hustle, when it's heart, and it's rebounding. That plays in Detroit.
Definitely. When we all show up on the same page with the same mentality going into the game, it's scary because that is something that not a lot of teams can do. At the end of the day, not a lot of teams have that camaraderie and togetherness that we potentially have and possess at times. And so just consistently showing up with that same energy and that same mindset going into games is what will be that last step to kind of lead to where it's when you know exactly what you're going to get when we show up, not all right, are they going to play hard today? What is our defense rotation going to look like? How is this? How's this? Nah, at the end of the day, we need to 100% know that if no shots fall, we're going to make it as hard for them to make these shots than us, shooting those shots as well. And so, we'll constantly keep going at it. And it's actually fun in practice because, of course, when you're playing live, everyone wants to be on offense. But at the same time, we try to not let the other team score, So it's multiple practices where frustration on the other team because they're not being able to score and this team's running it up a little bit. So that's just the identity that we want to bring to every game and just make it hard at the end of the day for the other team that we're going to play because that's Detroit. Tightens up, I guess.
I've heard that before. We are way over time. It is easy to see that you're a communications major. Mak Manciel, outstanding stuff from you. Really, really enjoyed it. So much fun and continued success. So glad that you're back. Best surprise of the year and can't wait to see what it looks like down the stretch. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was fun. It was definitely fun.
Never gets old seeing Mak Manciel. And that wraps up another edition of Tighten Up the podcast. So don't forget, it's your chance to help continue the show. All you have to do, throw a rating, throw a comment, throw a like on the show, whether you're listening to it on Apple, Spotify, iHeart, however you get this podcast. If you're watching along on social media, on X, on Instagram, throw it a like as well. Those little things go a very long way. You can find the Shield at social media. You can find them on Instagram at the Shield NIL, same place on X. You can find me as well. You can find me at that Dan Hasty on X. You can find me at Dan Hasty on Instagram. Back with more coming up later in this week and into next week. And I'll talk to you Titans of Industry next time.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Tighten Up, the podcast. Join our community at The Shield on theshieldnil.org and follow us on X and Instagram at The Shield NIL.
If I can tell you one thing above all else as part of this show, it would be this. If you're unfamiliar, if you haven't done it before, join the community at The Shield Online. It's online at theshieldnil.org. That's theshieldnil.org.